This is Modern Competitive Duel Masters. Hey guys, Rusmero here, and today I've got a special opening for y'all. Today, we're going to be opening the two new Game Designer Selection decks in the Japanese Duel Masters game. On the left, we have Fire Water Crash Hit, and on the right, Water Darkness Magic Tool. Now these decks do not have any new cards at all, they are all reprints, but they have been specially concocted by the Duel Masters development team to allow new players to very easily and cheaply access competitive play. Each of these decks only costs 3,300 yen, which after conversion is only about 25 USD. So just imagine being able to hold your own in high-level tournaments at less than $30. Now of course, you probably won't be able to win nationals with these decks, but they are definitely strong enough to top local tournaments, and of course with some tinkering, it is possible to bring them up to national level as well. Now first, let us begin with Firewater Crash Hit. I got these decks from Cardboard Collectible, an awesome card shop based in Singapore which does provide international shipping. They're one of the few English-speaking card shops that offer Japanese Duel Masters, so I would highly recommend them if you're interested in getting some products of your own. They have singles as well. Even the box packaging is really nicely designed. You just flip it open over here and instantly, that is all there is. A deck case. It's only made of cardboard, but it has a very cool and simple design. We have the Duel Masters logo all in black over there. That's Crash Hit, the ace card of this deck. On the left and the right. Ooh, I really like this variant of the logo following the background colors. On top, I think that's a faded silhouette of Crash Hit. Yep, and behind we get more of him, and the bottom is just plain. Now let's get this pack open. Here is just some filler space with plastic and just the deck itself. So this is what we have inside, and you will immediately note that all the cards in the deck are foil and come with a very special, awesome looking silver frame around the cards. That is very nice. Now we'll take a look at the cards in a bit. Other than that, in the box we just have a little ad over here, and this is what we used to get in all of those old school trading card game products back in the day as well. Basically a player's guide. Very nice. I love getting stuff like this, man. So it basically gives you a rundown on how to pilot the deck at the beginning, in the mid game, and in the late game to finish the opponent off as well. That is very nice. And on the back, I think, this is just a rulebook for brand new players. Now, instead of going through the cards in order like I do in my usual openings, because the whole point of this deck is to play competitively, I think I will go through them in an order that basically explains to you guys how exactly this deck works. Okay, I've divided the deck into 4 stacks. Now let's start with the very, very early game. And of course, we need to begin with this 1-cost card. Now this is the Submarine Fortress Lair. It is a castle card, a card type that we never got in the English Duel Masters game. So what castles do is that by paying the cost, you attach this to one of your shields, and when that shield breaks, this card is simply sent to the graveyard. So you might be wondering what's the point of that? Well, the point is that kind of like a field spell, while these castles are attached to your shields, you get some kind of bonus. And this one is so good that it is limited to only 1 copy in your deck. At the start of your turn, your opponent may draw a card, then you may draw a card. Then if you have a Cyberlord, you may draw a card and put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck, but honestly, we don't really care about the Cyberlord part. The main thing here is that as long as this card is on your field, at the start of each of your turns, both you and your opponent get to draw 1 card. Now, although that sounds like it might be giving your opponent advantage as well, this deck is an aggro deck. Once you assemble the pieces, you'll basically just finish off your opponent in a moment. So you need a lot of draw source like this card to basically accumulate your combo pieces as quickly as possible, and that's why it is such a good card for 1 mana in the deck. This is what you want to play on turn 1. Next, on turn 2, you want to play this guy. This is the creature, legendary performer, Kameworo. At the start of your turn, each player draws a card. So basically the same as the Submarine Fortress. And on Rain bonus, whenever you would draw a card for the first time each turn, if you have a multicolored creature in the battle zone, you may draw 2 cards instead of 1, and if you do, discard a card from your hand. So again, another important draw source for assembling your combo pieces, and this deck has some low-cost and multicolored creatures that you can play at the start as well in order to get off the Rain bonus to cycle through your deck faster. So of course we have 4 copies of that going up to the next. Going up to the max capacity, and then finally, at 4 cost, you will play Cyber Brain if you haven't completed your combo yet. This is actually a super old card that some of you might find familiar because it was printed in the very first set of Duel Masters. But it is so strong that it was limited to 1 because at 4 cost, it is a shield trigger and allows you to draw up to 3 cards. So as a draw source, it is simply indispensable. So these are basically your draw source cards that you will use to basically accumulate your combo pieces, which we'll go into later. Now let's take a look at some of the other setup cards for 2 and 3 cost. First, we have Strange Flow, Onikamas. Whenever your opponent would choose a creature, they can't choose this one. But this refers primarily to effects, alright? It can still be attacked and still be blocked. But the point of this is that it does not leave the field easily due to effects. Now while that is already very good, the key here is really the second effect. During your opponent's turn, whenever your opponent puts a creature into the battle zone in a way other than summoning, you may return that creature to its owner's hand. So what this means is that your opponent can't use any cheap ways to get really high cost creatures out for free using the effects of spells or certain combos, that kind of stuff. And this is why, in the modern meta, this is a meta card that is run at 4 in many decks, because it basically shuts down and impedes many of the powerful decks in the competitive environment. So that's why we of course have 4 copies of that. And after that, at 3 cost for Water, Fire, and Nature, we have Dysnomenon. First of all, since he's a rainbow creature, he helps you to get off Kamewurl's rain bonus to cycle through your deck faster. He's a Mach Fighter, a speed attacker, and a Just Diver. For those of you who are confused, Mech Fighters can attack tapped or untapped creatures during the turn they are played, so they can get rid of annoying setup creatures on the opponent's field, such as Onikamas. And with Speed Attacker, during the turn it is played, it can also go for the opponent's shields, just for aggro. And with Just Diver, when this creature is played, it gains this effect where it can't be chosen by your opponent and can't be attacked until the start of your next turn, so your opponent is going to have a very hard time getting rid of it, which of course makes it easier for you to get off the rain bonus to cycle through your deck. And finally, whenever this creature wins a battle, look at the top card of your deck and add it to your hand or put it into your mana zone. So if you already have your combo pieces assembled, can accelerate your plays, and if you don't, can help to cycle through your deck. A perfect partner for this deck. So we're getting 3 copies of that as well. So with all of these combination of setup cards, you basically build up your field, punch your opponent a bit, and get a lot of draws. Ultimately, what you want to assemble are these 2 cards. This costs 5 over here, and this costs 10. Now let's start with the ace of the deck. For 10 mana, the Victorious Dragon-Armed Crash Hit. First, he has the effect, Bad Action Dynamite 2. You may reduce this creature's summon cost by 2, and if you do, destroy this creature at the end of the turn. It is a speed attacker, double breaker, and while battling, this creature gets plus 5k power. But who cares about all of that? What you care about is this final effect. When this creature is destroyed while it is tapped, you get an extra turn after this one. Are things coming into place? He is 10 cost, but with Bad Action Dynamite, you can play him for 8 cost. Since he's a speed attacker, tap him to attack that turn, and then because of your cost reduction, he dies at the end of the turn. But because he dies while tapped, you get an extra turn. Isn't that just ridiculous? So this is the combo this deck is essentially trying to achieve. Summoning multiple copies of this guy, smashing the opponent with Speed Attacker, and then eventually they die and you keep getting more and more turns, and your opponent just can't do a thing. But even with Bad Action Dynamite 2, 8 mana is quite a lot to pay, right? Well, that is where this spell comes in. For 5 cost, Big Bang Flare. First, this card also has Bad Action Dynamite Spell 2, so you may reduce this spell card's cost by 2 by discarding a card from your hand. So that's why draws are so important for this deck as well, which means that you can play this with 3 cost, and you only need Fire mana. And the effect of this card is this. You may play a Beat Jockey from your hand. If you do, choose one of your opponent's creatures, those 2 creatures battle, and at the end of the turn, destroy that Beat Jockey. And guess who is a Beat Jockey? This guy right here. So you discard 1 card from your hand, you play Big Bang Flare to get Crash Hit out for essentially 3 cost. Since he's an attacker, a speed attacker, he can attack the turn he is played, so you destroy your opponent's shields or wreck their creatures, whatever you want to do. And then at the end of the turn, with the effects of Big Bang Flare, the creature played by its effect is destroyed, which then triggers Crash Hit's effect to give you another turn. So at first glance, this seems like a combo you can only start doing at turn 8. Turn 3! With this spell, you can start firing on this beast of a creature and start getting extra turns. And that is essentially the mechanic of this Crash Hit deck. But of course, there's only a double breaker. Crash Hit alone, even though he gives you extra turns, probably won't be enough to finish off the opponent. So there are some other support cards to help you basically deal that extra damage as well. Here we have the King Master Rare, Go Brand. So he's also a beat jockey, so just in case you didn't pull into your Crash Hit, this is a potential alternative to go into with Big Bang Flare as well, but not as good, because you really want to use it with this effect. Master Go Gangan Galaxy. If this is the only card in your hand, you may summon this creature for no cost, and it is a speed attacker double breaker. So basically, after using up the cards in your hand to perform your Big Bang Flare Crash Hit combo, and then you leave this guy in your hand, he comes out for free and can add to your aggro. And when this creature is played, if you have a fire card in your mana zone, draw a card, then you may discard any number of cards from your hand. For each card discarded this way, destroy one of your opponent's creatures that has 6,000 power or less. So can potentially help to control the opponent's aggro as well, but also gives you additional draws to continue the game. More importantly, we have 4 copies of Dragon Armored Valchuris. Whenever any of your creatures attacks while this creature is in your hand, if that attack is the second attack this turn, after that attack, you may put this creature into the battle zone and it is a speed attacker. So as long as you are able to attack twice per turn, this guy adds an additional third attack, or 4 for 5th, depending on the number of attackers you have on the field. But this effect can only be used if you haven't put a Valchuris into the battle zone this turn, so you cannot put like 4 copies of him in one turn and just get 4 extra battles, alright? It's basically a once per turn by name kind of attack, but basically adds to your aggro, very good for finishing off the opponent or getting that extra damage mid-game as well. Then if we look at some additional support cards, yep, I guess it'll just be these. So you'll notice that we don't have 4 copies of these because these aren't really part of the main body, they're just there to kind of like a support. So this is the Eureka Shuff, another popular meta creature in modern Duel Masters. Whenever this creature is played or attacks, choose a number, and until the start of your next turn, your opponent can't cast spells with that number, and their creatures with that cost can't attack or block. So basically, in about the mid-game, once you have a good understanding of what kind of deck your opponent is playing and you know what is like their ace creature or the ace spell that you're probably going to use, you can basically summon this guy or attack with it and then declare that card's cost, and your opponent will basically be stunned for that turn. So you can basically use this guy to buy some time as you assemble your combo pieces. Next, you have Umakin Project. You'll notice immediately that he has 0 base attack. Now, he comes with the Buzz Render keyword effect, and his is Buzz Render too, which means when you pay this creature's cost, you may pay any number of additional 2 cost. And then, when this creature is put into the battle zone, you use its Buzz Render ability once, and then once more for each additional cost you paid. Now that sounds a bit complicated, but just to break it down, Umakin Project is 4 cost to play, right? So if you just play him normally for 4 cost, you get his Buzz Render effect once. But if you pay an extra 2 cost for 6, you get his Buzz Render effect twice. If you pay 8, you get it twice. If you pay 10, you get it 4 times. Now what exactly is the Buzz Render effect? Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand, and put the other into your mana zone tapped. So accelerates your mana while also cycling through your deck. Very good. Now this creature gets plus 1k power for each card in your mana zone, so this is how it synergizes with that Buzz Render effect. And he also has Powered Breaker, which means he breaks an additional shield for each 6,000 power he possesses. So if you have 6 cards in your mana zone, he becomes a double breaker. If you have 12, he becomes a triple breaker. But honestly, you won't really be attacking with him. In fact, you might not even be playing him that much because, as I explained earlier, you only need 3 costs to get Big Bang Flare. You won't really need to accelerate mana much beyond the point of 4. So honestly, he's just a really good reprint that you might actually want to take out and play in other decks that require much more mana. But within this deck, he is also a good option to charge in order to put some water and nature mana in your mana zone as well, so you can bring out that 3 cost Dysnomenon. Okay, and next we have the 5 cost. This is a very solid meta card in the environment as well. Kirifuda, Katta, and Katsuking, Story of Passion. First, on Revolution 2, if you have 2 or less shields, this creature gets shield trigger in your shield zone. So this is the kind of card where you're just about to be defeated and then suddenly your opponent breaks your last shield. This guy appears. Normally he's not a shield trigger, but with Revolution 2, on the brink of defeat, he suddenly becomes one and enters the field. And on Revolution 0, if you have no shields, this creature gets plus 10,000 power, speed attacker, and triple breaker, becoming a total beast. Now at base, he is also already a Mach Fighter, and when you play this creature, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal one to your opponent, add it to your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. If the revealed card is fire or nature, you may choose a creature and return it to its owner's hand. So technically, although this guy can come out of your shield when you're in danger with its Revolution 2, it is not a blocker, so it can't stop your opponent if they have one more attack incoming. But with that effect to bounce an opposing card, that basically kind of fulfills that role to stop your opponent from finishing you off. You get another turn, and this this guy at Revolution 0 suddenly hits for 3 breaks. Yeah, but other than that, it actually doesn't have that much solid synergy with this deck. So actually, I think this is just a ploy by the designers to reprint this card at a very cheap price, because getting this card as a single now in Japan costs even more, like I think about $20 more than the price of this deck. So that's very nice on Takara Tomi's part to help control the accessibility of the game for all players. Okay, with that out of the way, I think we can just go into our shield triggers now. This is, you might not know this card because it's super new, but this is a very solid shield trigger in modern competitive Duel Masters. Ragnarok the Clock. Shield trigger. When you play this creature, skip the rest of the turn and immediately start the next player's turn. I don't think I need to explain why this is good. Opponent hits you, this guy comes out, opponent's turn ends, you draw. The end! Okay. Next, we have another shield trigger, Dawn Volcanic now. I think this should be the last card of the deck. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 in your mana zone, add 1 to your hand, and put 1 into your grave. Destroy one of your opponent's creature that costs the same or less than the card you put into your grave. So fitting for a blue, red, and green card, it gives you draws, it gives you manas, and can also control the opponent's field with some removal. So very nice for... well, it's very nice when your opponent attacks you and checks into this on one of your shield triggers. Okay, and that will basically be all for the Crash Hit deck. Okay, so that should be all for my explanation of the Firewater Crash Hit deck. I think you guys should be able to have a good grasp of how the deck plays at this point. And if this video has piqued your interest and you would like to get a copy of this deck as well, I would highly recommend Cardboard Collectible. Okay, with that, let's move on to the other game designer selection deck, Water Darkness Magic Tool.